Get back to exteriors then. So I mentioned to you about the stage direction. Just a note before we delve further into the play. Are you planning to use this more radically in your later plays? It's sort of in the Martin Scorsese way of using music constantly throughout your playmaking?
No, each play is going to have what it has. As I said, the very next play I'm going to have is going to be shockingly violent. It's going to be it's probably something that couldn't be produced on stage. I know that. It's going to be the shortest of the plays, probably going to be at least 5,000 words shorter than this play, Exteriors, which at 30,000 is the shortest of the 4 plays. It's going to be shockingly violent. It's going to be sexual, more so than just the exposed breast scene in Exteriors, and it's going to be something that probably could only be produced off Broadway or in experimental theater, but it's going to make anything written by any of the absurdists look like tinker toys compared to a masterpiece. Because again, it gets back to the Christina's world. I just get so tired of this art where we're only looking at the bottom right quadrant and oohing and ahhing about abstract expressionism or modern art that doesn't show any skill. Let's bring it out and bring the full thing into view. Let's take it to the next logical step in all of these ways. And in these first 4 plays, I build upon things that other people have touched on in 1 or 2 ways, and I'm making them deeper and better. And in this play, so just to get back to it, so I said, well, let's see, why don't I do a play with 3 female characters? And one of the things that in writing these plays that I had in the back of my mind is I have, I think, a dearth of female characters in my fiction. And in my short stories, I have quite a few characters. But in my long novels, I've basically focused on males and male things. And I think with novels where you can do a lot of the things, you can describe things, you can condense things. I can condense 1,500 years in a paragraph or 2. A lot of these things have been about male things: violence, action, power, the moment, history. These are male things. But in drama, in the play, these small moments, I find, at least emotionally and intellectually, I'm drawn more to the female characters. So you're going to be seeing a whole plenum of female characters in however many plays I do, 25, 30, 40, that are going to be some of the roles of a lifetime that actresses will lust for because they haven't been done before. And I did it with the first play. I think Megan and Valerie are killer characters for females. Aunt Darla is a character to die for an older actress in the second play. Gina and Ella are 2 good female characters, and in here the female characters are totally dominant. So I said, let me have 3 characters. Let me make them black and female, but I didn't want to really make race, even though there's a few mentions here of their being black. These characters are basically Oreos. They're upper class black characters in upstate New York, basically across Lake Ontario from Toronto, in the Rochester, Syracuse area. The mother is a woman who is the first black graduate and then later headmistress and I guess president of this all-girls boarding school type thing. It's never specifically stated. And she, in the present of the play of 2017, she's just died. It turns out she's died almost at the exact same time that Seamus Fitzgerald in the first play has died, because there's a scene in Exteriors where Danny Wagner calls the oldest daughter of the woman who dies his former lover, whose name is Cassie, and it turns out that he's calling her in this play right before he mentions he's going to call Megan later. So the scene at the end of the first play where Danny calls Megan takes place chronologically in that universe right after he's made the call in this fourth play. So that's something too. It's one of these little kind of tidbits that it's not going to make any difference if no one's seen that, if they're only watching this play for the first time. But it's something that within the universe again gives structure and cohesion. So this daughter, the there are three daughters of this woman who's going senile through Alzheimer's. There's Cassie, and Cassie is a couple of years younger than the Danny Wagner character, and she's based upon three characters. 30 years ago, when I went to SUNY Brockport for a writers' festival, I had this one-night stand with this girl. She was a white girl, and I think I described it in True Life. Not in much detail because I don't remember that much of it. But I said, well, that's my in to get Danny into the play. Is let me make that one night stand that he had with a black girl rather than a white girl, and they remain friends, just like I've remained friends with a woman I dated back in the early '90s. So I said, let's have Danny become accidental friends with her. And since he's friends with Megan, another former lover, I said this gives a continuity to the character that Danny somehow, unlike me, is a bit more suave and doesn't anger people as much, apparently. And so I have her, and she's basically taken over from her mother. Once her mother retired when she got the Alzheimer's diagnosis a decade earlier, Cassie gave up whatever job she had as a teacher and took over. And then she has two younger sisters who are her half-sisters. And they are full-blooded sisters to each other. They are Cassie's half-sisters, and there's a lot of squabbling between those two, and as well with Cassie. And the interesting thing is those two girls have a white father who was killed in 9/11. The husband of Norma, the woman going senile. So the father is dead and only seen in flashbacks or as a ghost. They are light-skinned, but Cassie, who's presumably full black, is even lighter skinned, which brings up a schism. And in the play sort of dances around in 3 or 4 mentions of it. We know the real story. You get the sense that maybe Norma had been raped or somehow maybe molested and got impregnated by a white guy, but she's claimed that it was a former black lover just so that her daughter, Cassie, doesn't, have some psychological damage from being the product of rape. That's my interpretation. It's never overtly stated in the play, so my interpretation, even though I'm the author of it, doesn't affect the integrity and reality of the diegetic universe of the play. So since it's not totally confirmed, I can't say it with certainty. And then you have the two husbands of the two younger daughters. One of them's a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, and he owns some fast food joints, and the other one is a banker. So this is a wealthy family, a family that is above poverty. Danny is the only white character other than, well, one of two. The dead husband and Danny are the two white characters. But basically, over the course of a decade or so, we trace scenes between the different factions, and I think it's again. I was tooting my own horn about the way that Gina speaks at different ages in Big Al's Gina. This, I think, even though it's not nearly as long as the first 2 plays, the conversations are just right on. I condense each scene and end these scenes. Sometimes I end seemingly in medias res, that they end where maybe before dramatically they might go on with another writer. But I think I know exactly when to end and get the effect that I want. So that's the setup of the play. So go ahead with your next question.
It's also interesting that even though some of them retain some black dialect, that it's very individuated and only here and there, whereas most black dialect is highly stereotyped or archetypal, I guess.
Well, they're Oreos, and there is the thing too. The one husband who's the former addict, who's he feels he's looked down upon because he's not part of the intellectuals. That the women of the family are the intellectuals. And then his wife, Ione, the youngest of the daughters, also feels like she's an outsider and whatnot. But the play basically opens with them outside of time, the 3 daughters and the mother. The mother is standing at the front of the stage with her back towards the audience. Her daughters are spread out in a semicircle like on a watch or a clock. And the lights go on and off. When the mother is speaking, the lights are all up. The daughters can hear them. But when the daughters speak, the light is only on them, which signifies that they're speaking, but the mother who's in black can't hear. So you get this chorus, anti-chorus of that dramatically displays that this is a woman who is in decline. She doesn't know what's real around her. And the play also uses a few other devices, such as the husband coming back. The daughters at one point speaking. They're going to have to speak and act in slow motion. They're going to have to say, "Well, sister," as Norma, the mother, is going at real time, and she sees this little white girl, and we don't know what the white girl represents, and I don't know what it represents. This comes from when my own mom was dying, and she saw a woman in blue, supposedly named Ursula, and so people whose minds are going sometimes have these delusions. It's mentioned by one of the daughters, I think, that they think that the white girl that the mother is seeing might be a girl she went to school with or grew up with. But then at the end of the play, she doesn't use the name of that girl, Mary Gussie. She uses the name Lucy. And Lucy, of course, the name actually means light, lucent. It's lux from the Latin, I believe. So she's calling Lucy, and so in my mind, again, this is not in the diegetic universe, and it's open to interpretation, but in my mind, the little white girl that acts as a sort of tantalizing thing is maybe the projection of the dying woman of who she really believes she is, that she's an Oreo, that she is somehow, you get a sense that she was a snob, sometimes even against, other people of her own color, but also the fact that she's somehow different than other people, and we don't know what the little white girl represents. But so that's actually the third white character. He has a minor speaking role, but
in this play too, and then a few of the previous ones, poems are projected on the back of the stage, and Beauty Bear is used very well here to kind of show the fractal state of Norma's mind. Speak a little bit about that device and how the lines begin to go backwards, and then sometimes the narrative is completely in flux.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's in runes rather than in normal typed English.
Well, I want to show in that on stage you can do some of the things in film. In a future play that I'm going to do, I have an idea for a scene. Actually, it's going to be the play that I'm going to do my week off in a couple of weeks. Once I finish this play I was just talking about, the first Tetramal play, that's going to be a long play because I've got a week off, so I'll have like at least 5 full days that I can write for like 10, 12 hours. So I should get that done within a week's time, or maybe a little longer. But in that play, what I'm going to use is back screen projection, like in the old Alfred Hitchcock movies, where you see something projected in the back. And so why not use that technique on stage, where if the character walks out, maybe he's going to just be running in place, but you'll see as if he's running or something. And so how do you use different techniques, whether it's music, whether it's plays? In some of the plays, I've had words projected onto the characters. Here, for example, the epigraphs of the play, the 3 daughters, it's the 3 daughters, no, it's the mother and the 2 youngest daughters come out, and they introduce the act, and they read the epigraphs to the people and go back. So using these kinds of techniques to give a sense, and in none of these plays, I don't really describe much how the characters look. I don't really describe, the sets are fairly bare. We don't have to have big walls. If there's a couch or a bedroom scene, you just need a couch and maybe a TV, some planks, a board. That was one of the things that Tom did in his play that I noticed he took from me, which is good. Using in one scene like planks for a bar scene or some whatever scene he had, and because that's a play shouldn't have to spend so much on this kind of thing. In another future play I'm going to have a play about this woman that I was involved with for about a month and a half, 20 years ago. She was a drunk. She was in a rock band, and she also had been trained, I believe, in classical music as a child. And so I'm going to have the actress that's going to take that role eventually is going to have to be cast with someone who can play a piano, because I'm going to have like 4 different times in that play where the character is playing music. original music that is written. So 4 times, but I'm going to have it required that the character is going to have to play 3 different variations of it. So each production that does that play can come up with its own music. So in writing these plays too, I leave a lot of areas gray. I often have scenes where it'll say another character speaking, the characters in the back improvise, or as the music swells, the characters improvise. That would give an actor a great leeway to add their own little personal stamp or quirk that could resonate in the play. Sometimes it may fail, but more often than not, it would probably succeed with a good actor. And so to make theater more involving for the actors,